What a beautiful introduction, Beth. And I should say, Beth and the Walters family, their selflessness has brought the possibility of treatment for people with the form of frontotemporal dementia that happened in their family. And so sad that it didn't happen for the three brothers. It's such an honor to be recognized by the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration this evening and receive the Susan Newhouse and Cy Newhouse Award of Hope. It's the highest honor that someone in our field could ever receive. And thank you to Falazan for hosting this beautiful evening. I'm going to remember back to AFTD's early days in 2002 when it was founded by the innovator Helen Ann Comstock. Soon afterwards, the medical board was constituted, led by my friend Murray Grossman. You'll hear more about Murray. Susan Dickinson joined in 2008. Around the same time, Beth Walter became the chair of the national board. Heady, heady times. With these and many other amazing leaders, in slightly more than 20 years, AFTD has become a powerful force, changing science and changing care for people with FTD. From a rare and undiagnosable condition, today FTD is an illness that is driving the world of neuroscience, and this is AFTD's legacy, driving neuroscience. I believe that the first powerful treatments for neurodegenerative diseases will come out of our highly creative and innovative field. Remarkable advances have been made possible by AFT's vision, passion, and devotion. That's all of you. Particular thanks to Susan Dickinson, Donald Newhouse, Kathy Newhouse-Mealy, David Pfeiffer, Kristen Holloway, and the board members who have guided, with many others, AFTD in this incredibly important space where it now resides. We are all graced tonight by the presence of Emma Willis, who has become a unique and formidable voice for our community. You got a hint of her humility and beauty. No one could do it better. In the early 1980s, I came to UCLA to complete a dementia fellowship with Frank Benson. Frank was an amazingly open, generous, brilliant man with remarkable clarity of thought and unique skills of communication. The prevailing idea during the 1970s and 80s was that if you had cognitive impairment, it was due to Alzheimer's disease. Sadly, FTD became a footnote, rarely diagnosed, and almost no research, even worse, no patient services. Our patients and their families were abandoned. Frank taught me how to diagnose FTD. Subsequently, while at UCLA, I saw a large group of patients who suffered from this condition, began to study them. These patients and their amazing caregivers visited me in my small trailer, it was small, and spent days with our team. I learned to take what I call a bionarrative, a description of how a slow biological disorder of the frontal and anterior temporal lobes changes behavior, changes the life of a person, changes the lives of people around them. I learned so much during that time from my colleagues, patients, and their families about a mysterious disease which changed forever my understanding what the brain was. FTD is hard for the medical community to understand because it requires a massive paradigm shift, massive, not only for the medical community, but also for society at large. We are taught from an early age that behavior is something that is determined by how we were raised and the circumstances of our lives. Yes, that is true, but it is only partially true. We have learned from FTD that preventing addiction, compulsions, cruelty, selfishness, unfairness, illogical thinking, rule breaking, and aphasia is controlled by a relatively small, subtle regions in the frontal and anterior temporal lobes. Amazing story. FTD attacks the social and linguistic brain, and when it does this, it destroys our capacity to live successfully in society with others. This is the profound observation of FTD. Behavior comes from the brain, but it is a challenging idea for society to understand. Diana, Sandra, you inspired all of us with your strength, your humor, your hope. What beautiful humor in the face of the grief of this terrible journey. Many in the room tonight here are caregivers, the real unsung heroes of the FTD story. Your burden is huge, we know this, yet you care for your loved ones with remarkable grace, creativity, and selflessness. You are the ones who have taught me the most about FTD, and your observations are bringing new hope to people with this condition. Hope is here today. Why? First, the diagnosis of FTD is rapidly improving, and we have clear, measurable clinical criteria for this condition. MRI, neurofilament light chain, and genetics are biomarkers that are very powerful and help confirm the diagnosis, not postmortem, but during life. For genetic forms of FTD, there are now disease-modifying therapies, 8 alone for the progranulin mutation in clinical trials. These range from antibodies, neural transplantation, compounds that modify the production of faulty genes. Massive international efforts are now ongoing, inspired by AFTD. All FTD in the United States and Canada, GenFi in Europe, RedLat across Mexico and South America, and they are characterizing huge numbers of people. This is not a rare disease, who enrolls in studies, understand the progression, and receive therapies now, finally receiving therapies. Similar initiatives are emerging across the world. Your generosity tonight will make a big difference in this global effort. You're making all the difference. Let me end by saying an introduction of the wonderful people at my table. Deborah, my wife, and I have been together for almost 50 years. And I am forever more grateful to her. A slight improvisation here. Deborah and Beth, at the last meeting we were together at, had the bartender name drinks after them. So this is really true. Elizabeth and Christy, my wife's sisters, have been with me almost the time when they were barely born. Murray Grossman was a huge figure in our field, a colleague, a friend who we lost this year. His incredible wife, Fran, and physician neurologist son, Scott, are here with us tonight to honor Murray. Murray was huge. So I have the 2 best doctors in New York at my table. One is Fanny Elahi, who's finding treatments for and diagnoses for frontotemporal dementia, and Scott. Different schools, NYU, Mount Sinai, but they're both great. And then the artists of the Global Brain Health Institute, who are using the arts to tell the story of frontotemporal dementia. Magda Kazmierska is a wonderful dancer who works through movement with the vulnerable, caregivers, and patients. Thank you, Magda. Zach Bandler, brilliant filmmaker whose screenplay about frontotemporal dementia will increase the visibility of this illness across the world. He's recent Zoetrope, Francis Ford Coppola winner, so incredible filmmaker. Jake Broder's play Unravel will be traveling across the world, and it dignifies people with FTD, unlike his role in Silicon Valley, where it's a different story altogether. Okay, thank you. And just a few last words. I mentioned Fanny. You know, I have new respect for the elder politicians who read teleprompters. It's not so easy. And I want to say thank you again to Beth, the Newhouse family, and all at AFTD for this honor. And thank you all for gathering here to advance hope for all who face FTD. Because of you, we are making real progress toward the treatments, care, support, and prevention that families deserve. Thank you.